Okay, so this is the third in the series of sharpening techniques. So this is more of a aggressive way of doing things. The thing about the WorkSharp is that, as I mentioned in the video, it can be a bit treacherous because there's a lot of power here, right? You've got very coarse belts, and you have basically a belt sander that's smaller, right? So notice I have two boxes here. So I'm going to explain this version, and then I'll explain the version that I tend to use. Both work well. This is the Ken Onion Edition WorkSharp. Comes as it is. Comes with the belts and the guide. And the belts go all the way up to a stropping belt. So they'll go from a coarse grip to reprofile all the way up to, it's not leather, but it is simulated leather. And it has these guides. It has an angle guide here, right? Generally, we've been saying, anywhere from 17 to 20. So this little knob here is great. It adjusts these little guides. And the idea with this is that, and I'm going to show you a different one. I'm not going to run this through with the belt. Is that you would take a sword and put it in this guide, and then you pull it through as the belt is running, right? So there's some things that are good and bad about this. One, it has a good angle on it. Depending on the sword you're using, this can kind of be a disadvantage. So this is a cold steel warrior. This thing is a monster. It has a very big mune. It is a thick, tough blade. And it will work in this guide, but one of the things you have to be aware of is that it'll probably scratch the blade, right? Which in most cases with Shinken that you're using, you're going to be encountering that anyway. So it doesn't matter how pretty the sword is, you're probably going to scratch it anyway at some point. So just get on with it, right? So there's another attachment for this. Which is the blade grinding attachment, which I find is really nice to use. So this just comes off. And then this attachment has this little kind of like bench on it. And it's really nice. It just pops on here like so. And it's got a little locking wheel that you tighten up. And then you have your blades. Your belts rather. I have some new ones here, so I'm going to use new belts rather, on this blade. And so again, same thing. You have very coarse or coarse to very coarse to medium to fine, and what they call extra fine, which is actually sharpening. Right, so this sword is pretty good right now, but it probably needs some help. So, do the old paper test, and it's not great, right? So it can use a little bit of a touch-up. So I'm going to set this here, and then I'm going to go ahead and just do this on the fine, because I want to be conscious of our time here, but I want to get across. That's medium. That's coarse. Fine. Okay, so the belt locks in through here, right? This little piece has a spring on it that locks into place. It's real nice. And here's your angle adjustment. There's a little screw back here that allows you to adjust it, get it to the right angle that you want. Again, this is set to 20 for right now. The other part of this is that these wheels can actually be set further in to be closer. This will actually allow you to do a flat grind, which really is not advisable for these swords, right? Because when they're actually sharpened, when they're made, they have that apple seed edge geometry to it, right? That helps reinforce the blade edge and keep it from damage, right? So the idea is that you have a little bit of slack in the belt here that allows for it to kind of wrap around the edge a little and give you that convex grind as opposed to a flat grind. Right? So that's what we're shooting for here. So first thing I'm going to do is put the belt on. There it is. And so it just goes into here, goes behind this wheel, and then locks into place like so. And then we kind of give it a couple of spins, and you have an adjustment here that allows the belt to be centered on the wheel so it doesn't go flying off the tool. This is a variable speed tool, so it allows you to adjust it so that's about as fast as it goes. You can lock it in on a medium, right? So for this particular attachment, you can leave the tool running. When you actually watch videos and you use the other attachment, you see people like kind of power it up, draw through, and stop, right? This is a little bit different. So anyway, it's gonna look a little different. So what I'm gonna do here is clean off the blade as we talked about in the videos. So I got a little bit of alcohol here, trying to get some of the oil off of here. A little crazy. Get that all nice and clean. Because again, this is a new belt, right? So we talked about this with the other videos, is you want to try and get as much oil and dirt off before you start sharpening, because it's going to wind up in your stones, it's going to wind up in your belts. Not going to last that long. These, I have the gloves similar to what Basil was using with the stone kit that help prevent against accidents. You will be handling the blade here with the tool. I highly recommend these because it will slip. And as you can see, it's pretty tight. All right, so with this exercise, I'm actually, when I sharpen these, I don't actually take the sword apart for this. I just actually run it through like so, give it like 4 passes. So what happens here is this part allows you to keep the sword or the knife fairly flat, and you keep checking it as you go through, right? So like when Basil was showing the stones, right, you're checking your alignment as you move up the sword. Similar thing here, right? But the angle is actually in the belt itself and in the tool, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and power this on. All right, it's about medium, and you kind of start here, and you don't want to linger too long. Come back, double check. Right, so you get a pass. So I usually go, like I said, like 4. Right, so I'm going to do 3 and then I'll check it. I'll go back through. So you want to try and be mindful of the angle as much as possible. It's really easy with a heavy sword to get out of whack. So I'll do that, shut it off. So, bad thing about these gloves is that you can't check for a burr, right? So the idea here is that you're trying to build a burr on one side of the blade. So you gotta take these gloves off, to see if you were successful. And if you are, you stop. If you're not, you keep going, right? So yeah, there's a bit of a burr on there, right? So like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time. I just want to show the example. So let me put the gloves back on. And you can see the belt is already picking up, you know, material. You know, it's just the nature of the beast, and it's a white belt. So like, you're gonna have something. So just flip the side, right? And this becomes a little bit difficult because the suba is kind of hitting the tool, right? So you have to be a little bit mindful here. And you'll find that some of the sides are easier to do than others. And this is not very easy to do sitting down. Like this, I usually stand for this. One pass. This is the side I'm not so great with because my left arm is not doing too well. So you gotta stretch. The longer the sword, the more you gotta stretch. So, notice I'm handling this blade how you would not handle a blade if you were barehanded right now. So, please don't do that barehanded. So, hopefully we got a little bit better of an edge on here. It's a little better. Right? Little more refinement needed, but that's the gist of the WorkSharp. Depending on what's going on with the sword, if this particular sword has taken a little bit of edge damage, so probably would have want to started at medium to refine the edge a little more. It just depends on what kind of shape your sword's in. Like, so if it's looking pretty, it's not even cutting paper at all, you're gonna want to take it down to probably the red belt, run it through, reprofile, work it all the way up, and then drop it, and then do well. So that's it. Any questions?
I noticed there's a lot of wobble when you're running the blade along, and I think that's probably just from you sitting down.
Yeah.
But when you wobble like that, aren't you causing an uneven sharpening of the edge?
Yeah, it can. Yeah, it's tough. That's why I said, like, you know, sitting down is probably not the best way to do this because, yeah, you're getting that wobble, right? You want to try and be as level as possible and kind of feed it through, right? But when you're sitting down, it's kind of hard. When you're standing up, you can kind of, on a workbench, feed the sword through like straight. So yeah, that's, some of this is probably not the best, you know, from this example, but you know, just kind of get the point across. Yeah. But yeah. Any other questions?
I couldn't really see it from here, but on the side that you're actually, when the blade across, is there like a shelf or a guide that you're actually resting?
No. So down, like what? Oh, down here. Yeah. There's like a little shelf. Right, and that's actually the guide for you to kind of come back and make sure that the sword is, you know, somewhat flat, right? Because you want to try and stay away from doing this, right, or this, like Jonathan was saying, like it's easy to do that, right? You want to keep it as flat as possible. That way, when you approach the belt, you're actually working that angle on there. But, all right, any other questions?
All right, thank you. Good job.